Hey folks, thanks for joining me for this episode from the Embellished Pod. If you got here by chance, please take a moment to hit the subscribe button. Hopefully I can be found on any podcasting platform that exists, and if you can't find me on a platform, send me an email at embellishpod@gmail.com, and I'll get that taken care of. You can also find video versions of this podcast on YouTube. You can find all of my links on Instagram at embellishpod or TikTok with the same handle. I have a website. It is www.embellishpod.com. It's a place to pick up these links, episode details, and more. In the early 2000s, Highland Park faced an identity crisis that would define the future of Highland whiskey marketing. Despite being one of Scotland's most respected distilleries, the brand struggled in international markets dominated by flashier Speyside malts and smoky Islay legends. The turning point came when Highland Park's marketing team made a controversial decision: embrace their Viking heritage completely. While other distilleries downplayed historical connections as old-fashioned, Highland Park leaned into Orkney's Norse past with unprecedented boldness. The campaign launched with the Valhalla collection. It was a limited release with runic inscriptions and bottles designed by renowned silversmiths. Industry experts scoffed at what seemed like gimmicky marketing, predicting that the strategy would alienate serious whiskey drinkers. Instead, something remarkable happened. The Viking Narrative didn't just sell bottles. It educated consumers about Orkney's unique terroir and Highland's distinctive production methods. Sales soared, and the brand found its voice in a crowded marketplace. The success revealed a crucial truth about Highland whiskey. Authenticity resonates more powerfully than conformity. Highland Park's willingness to tell their genuine story, however unconventional, transformed them from struggling to a global powerhouse. Today, their approach influences how distilleries worldwide think about heritage marketing. This episode hopefully demonstrates Highland whiskey's greatest strength: diversity that allows each distillery to forge its own path while maintaining Highland character. Welcome to the Highlands, Scotland's largest and most diverse whiskey region, encompassing everything north of an imaginary line from Greenock to Dundee, excluding Speyside. This vast area contains dramatic geographical contrasts that create equally diverse whiskey styles. The region breaks into distinct sub-areas: Northern Highlands with a maritime influence from the North Sea and dramatic coastlines. Southern Highlands, gentler rolling hills, closer to lowland character. East Highlands, known for dry, heather-influenced whiskeys and granite water sources. And then the Western Highlands, which are coastal and sometimes peated, all facing the Atlantic's fierce weather. No single Highland style exists. This region produces everything from delicate floral whiskeys that could pass for lowland expressions to rich sherry powerhouses that rival Speyside's most intense offerings. This diversity stems from the region's sheer size and varied geography, climate, and water sources. The Highlands contain Scotland's highest distillery, Dalmore, at 1,164 feet above sea level, and some of its most remote. Many Highland distilleries were built in isolated glens where clear mountain water flows, and smugglers once operated beyond government reach. The isolation fostered independent thinking and diverse approaches to whiskey making that continue today. Highland whiskeys often showcase the influence of their specific locations more dramatically than other regions. Coastal distilleries develop maritime salinity from the sea air penetrating warehouse walls, while mountain distilleries emphasize mineral character and granite-filtered water. Some Highland distilleries use peat sparingly, drying malt, creating subtle smoke that complements rather than dominates other flavors. The region's history includes some of whiskey's most romantic stories: hidden stills in remote glens, smugglers' routes through mountain passes, and distilleries built where ancient springs emerge from granite bedrock. This heritage influences modern production, with many distilleries maintaining traditional techniques alongside innovative approaches. During today's tasting, we're going to feature 4 different whiskeys. Now, 2 of them will repeat from the same distillery, but I think that it is valuable. We're going to have a Dalmore 12-year-old, which is like an entry-level Highland character type pour, and then a Dalmore 18, which should be the same distillery, but now we're looking at age development on the same distillate. After that, we'll look at a Glendronic Allardice 18-year-old, which should be a Highland sherry bomb, and then a Glenmorangie Signet, which is an innovative Highland approach. Let's start talking a little bit about Dalmore. Dalmore was founded in 1839 by Alexander Matheson. Dalmore sits on the shores of the Cromarty, Firth in the Northern Highlands, where Distillery's distinctive pagoda roofs have become local landmarks. The iconic stag logo comes from the Highland legend where a Mackenzie clan chief saved King Alexander III from a charging stag during the royal hunt in 1263. The grateful king granted the clan the right to display the royal stag as their emblem. The family motto, Lucio non uro, I shine, not burn, perfectly captures their whiskey philosophy, creating whiskeys that glow with warmth rather than burning with harsh alcohol. This approach influences every aspect of production, from gentle fermentation to careful cask selection. Master Distiller Richard Patterson worked at Dalmore for nearly 5 decades, becoming one of Scotland's most recognizable whiskey personalities. Famous for his theatrical tasting style, nose in the glass, dramatic swirling, and passionate descriptions, Patterson embodied Highland whiskey's romantic spirit. His expertise was so valued that his nose was once insured for $2.5 million by Lloyd's of London, though the policy has since lapsed. Dalmore pioneered innovative cask finishing techniques using rare sherry casks that cost up to £30,000 each. These Madusalam or Oloroso sherry butts aged for decades in Spanish bodegas, creating rich, luxurious character that Dalmore is famous for. Patterson personally selected each cask, traveling to Spain annually to taste and approve cooperage work. The distillery's water comes from the River Averon, flowing through peat and granite from the Andros Hills. This water picks up subtle mineral notes that complement the whiskey's rich character without overwhelming delicate flavors. Production features traditional techniques with modern precision. 4 copper pot stills, 2 wash stills, and 2 spirit stills create the house character through careful cut points and slow distillation. The spirits use shell and tube condensers for a clean spirit character, while fermentation occurs in Oregon pine washbacks that contribute subtle vanilla notes. Dalmore's warehouse philosophy emphasizes patience over profit. Their aged expressions spend decades in carefully selected cask types, with some releases featuring whiskeys over 40 years old. This long-term thinking creates the complexity that justifies premium pricing in luxury markets worldwide. Moving on to Glendronach. Founded in 1826 by James Allardyce in the Aberdeenshire Highlands, Glendronach earned the nickname the Sherry Distillery through exclusive use of Spanish oak casks for maturation. Located in the Forgu Valley, the distillery sits beneath the Rins Hills, where natural springs provide soft water for whiskey production. Allardyce chose this location for its combination of pure water, abundant peat supplies, and proximity to Aberdeen's port for importing the sherry casks. The distillery's early success came from understanding how Scottish climate and Spanish oak created unique flavor combinations impossible to replicate elsewhere. From 1960 to 2008, Glendronach was owned by teachers, focusing primarily on blended whiskey production. The distillery's potential was largely overlooked until Billy Walker purchased it in 2008, immediately recognizing the treasure trove of aged stocks maturing in traditional dunnage warehouses. Walker's transformation of Glendronach into a premium single malt brand showcased how proper cask management and marketing could revive dormant assets. He also released a series of aged expressions that demonstrated the distillery's capability for producing world-class single malts, not just blending its components. The distillery is famous for its resident bat colony, which roosts in the traditional warehouses throughout the winter. Local legend says that the bats bring good luck for the whiskey, and that their presence indicates the warehouse's perfect environment for maturation. Some limited releases feature bat imagery on the labels, creating this unique relationship between wildlife and whiskey. Traditional production methods include floor maltings used until 1996, where barley was turned by hand with wooden shovels. Coal-fired stills were used until 2005, creating direct heat that contributed to the rich, oily character still found in some of the older Glendronach expressions. Modern production maintains this character through carefully controlled gas heating and precise fermentation timing. Water comes from the springs in the Rins Hills, naturally filtered through granite and emerging crystal clear. This exceptionally pure water requires minimal treatment, allowing the natural mineral content to contribute subtle complexity without interfering with the sherry cask influences. Glendronach's commitment to the sherry cask maturation runs deeper than most distilleries. They maintain relationships with specific bodegas in Jerez, personally selecting casks that are based on the sherry's character and the cask's previous contents. This attention to detail creates the consistent quality that defines their releases. Finally, we're going to move to Glenmorangie or Glenmorangie. Not really sure which one it is, but it was founded in 1843 by William Matheson. It was also built on the site of the Morangie Brewery in Tain, Rossshire. The name means Valley of Tranquility in Gaelic, reflecting the peaceful Highland setting where the distillery has operated for over 180 years. The Glenmorangie's most distinctive feature is Scotland's tallest pot still, standing over 26 feet high, its necks reaching 16 feet 10 inches. This is the same height as a giraffe, as their marketing famously notes. These extraordinarily tall stills create extensive copper contact and allow only the lightest, most delicate vapors to reach the condenser. The result is Glenmorangie's signature, elegant, fruity character that forms the perfect canvas for innovative maturation techniques. The distillery draws water from the Tarlogie Springs, which flow through limestone and sandstone before emerging naturally filtered and mineral rich. This water source has been protected by the distillery for generations, ensuring consistency in their whiskey's foundational character. In 2004, Moet Hennessy purchased Glenmorangie, bringing luxury goods expertise to the Highland whiskey production. This ownership provided resources for innovation while maintaining respect for traditional Scottish methods. The combination of French luxury market understanding and Highland whiskey craftsmanship created unique opportunities for premium positioning. Glenmorangie pioneered wood finishing in the 1990s with their portwood, sherrywood, and Madeira wood releases. These expressions revolutionized the industry by demonstrating how additional maturation in wine and fortified wine casks could create an entirely new flavor and profile from familiar base spirits. This innovation influenced countless other distilleries and created modern wood finishing categories. Their most innovative expression, Signet, represents radical thinking within the traditional Highland production. The whiskey uses chocolate malt, typically reserved for brewing porter and stout, combined with virgin American oak casks to create flavors unprecedented in Scottish whiskey. Chocolate malt contributes rich, coffee-like notes that complement traditional Highland fruit characters. The Signet project required years of experimentation to balance the intense chocolate malt flavors with Glenmorangie's elegant house style. The final recipe uses a small percentage of chocolate malt blended with traditional pale malted barley, creating complexity without overwhelming the distillery's signature character. Glenmorangie claims to be Scotland's favorite single malt, based on domestic sales figures indicating their success in creating whiskies that appeal to Scottish palates while gaining international recognition. This dual success, local acceptance, and global expansion demonstrates the effective balance between tradition and innovation. Now, we would be remiss if we also did not talk about Highland Park, which was featured in the introduction of this segment. While we won't be tasting a spirit from this, I felt like we really needed to dive into this distillery a little bit more since it was how we opened this episode. Founded in 1798 by Magnus Ensign in Kirkwall, Orkney, Highland Park sits on Scotland's northernmost whiskey-producing islands. Ensign was a local church officer and a legal distiller who allegedly hid his still beneath the church pulpit, conducting Sunday services above his hidden operation. When revenue officers searched the church, they found nothing suspicious. The congregation was sitting on the evidence. Orkney's unique location closer to Bergen, Norway than London creates distinctive environmental conditions that influence whiskey character. The islands experience extreme weather, from fierce Atlantic storms to surprisingly mild temperatures, moderated by the Gulf Stream. This climate creates unique maturation conditions impossible to replicate on the Scottish mainland. Highland Park maintains traditional floor maltings, hand-turning barley with wooden shields or shovels, and techniques unchanged for centuries. They're one of only 6 Scottish distilleries still malting their own barley, using traditional methods that contribute subtle but crucial flavors to the final whiskey. The distillery uses Orcadian peat, formed from heather rather than trees, creating subtler, honey-sweet smoke compared to the mainland peat. This heather peat burns at a lower temperature and produces aromatic compounds that complement rather than dominate other flavors. The result is Highland Park's signature balance between smoke and sweetness. Their 5 copper pot stills produce whiskey that perfectly balance Highland and island characteristics. The spirit shows Highland elegance with island robustness, creating whiskeys that age exceptionally well while maintaining accessibility for newcomers. Water comes from the Caddy Maggie spring, named named after a local witch who was said to have blessed the water source. The spring provides soft, mineral-rich water that flows through ancient Orkney sandstone, picking up a subtle earthy note that complements the whiskey's complex character. Viking heritage, of course, runs deep in Highland Park's identity. Orkney was ruled by the Vikings for over 600 years, leaving cultural DNA influences on modern production. Their advertising emphasizes Norse heritage with runic and Viking imagery, while limited releases like the Valhalla collection feature bottles designed by renowned silversmiths. The distillery survived both world wars when many others closed, partly due to their strategic location for provisioning naval vessels. During World War II, Scapa Flow Naval Base brought thousands of servicemen to Orkney, creating demand for Highland Park's whiskey while other distilleries were struggling with wartime restrictions. Before we dive into tonight's Highland expressions, let's talk about the glasses that we're going to be using. The Glendale Whiskey Nosing Glass. This is a tulip-shaped vessel that represents one approach to enhancing whiskey appreciation. Though like many specialized tools, it comes with both advantages and limitations. The Glendale's most significant strength lies in its concentration power. The narrow rim and the bulbous bowl create a focused nosing experience that can reveal subtle aromatics, while you might miss those in a standard tumbler. For Highland whiskies, like tonight's selection, where complexity often develops gradually, this concentration can unlock layers of fruit, spice, and oak that define regional character. The glass excels with sherried Highland malts like our Glendronic Allardice. The concentrated aromatics help distinguish between Pedro Jimenez sweetness and Oloroso spice, while the rim's design prevents alcohol burn from overwhelming the delicate fruit notes. When nosing innovative expressions like the Glenmorangie Signet, the Glendale helps separate the chocolate malt character from the underlying Highland fruit. Professional tasters often prefer tulip-shaped glasses for evaluation because they provide consistent aromatic delivery and reduce variables between samples. For educational tastings like ours, this consistency helps participants identify specific Highland characteristics across different distilleries. However, the Glendale's intensity can work against certain Highland styles. Delicate, elegant whiskies like our Dalmore 12-year-old seem compressed or overwhelmed in such concentrated presentations. Some whiskey lovers find the glass too clinical, preferring wider bowls that allow whiskeys to breathe and develop naturally. The narrow rim can also restrict the tasting experience. While excellent for nosing, it doesn't deliver whiskey to the palate in the same way that a traditional Copita or Glencairn glass might. This limitation becomes apparent with Highland whiskies that rely on mouthfeel and textural complexity for their appeal. Cost and practicality present additional concerns. Glendale glasses often require careful handling and aren't suitable for casual drinking. Their specialized design makes them less versatile than traditional whiskey glasses that work well for multiple spirits. For our Highland journey, we'll use the Glendale's strengths while acknowledging the limitations. The concentrated aromatics will help us distinguish between distillery characters and identify regional Highland traits. However, remember that these whiskeys might present differently in your preferred glass at your home with your palate. The goal isn't perfect glassware, but consistent appreciation. Whether you're using a Glendale, Glencairn, wine glass, whatever, the key is understanding how your chosen vessel will influence the whiskey's presentation and adjust your expectations accordingly. Our Highland journey will begin with the Dalmore 12. This is an expression that perfectly embodies accessible Highland character. The whiskey represents the Northern Highland style at its most welcoming, complex enough to reward attention while remaining approachable for newcomers. Now, I like to normally do my tastings in sets of 3, but since most of these samples are coming out of bottles that are this size, 3 becomes more difficult. But also for the context of this particular episode, I'd like to do things just a little bit different so we can kind of power through some of these items. Now, the first time I pass through on the nose of this, I'm picking up things like orange, but like a thicker orange and orange marmalade type situation, maybe some chocolate, maybe some red berries, and there's a really good Christmas spice to this. And if I were to kind of put like one word over top of it, it's gummy, but not like a fruit gummy and not like a gummy, just like it's gummy, like it's thick, jammy or whatever. The palate on this comes across with some honeysuckle nectar. I grew up around a lot of honeysuckle vines. I spent a lot of time consuming honeysuckle nectar, and it immediately hits the palate and is there. Now, there is still some chocolate here, but it stays kind of in the dark realm. Some citrus peel bitterness comes in. Now, that could be playing off of what I think is maybe the bitterness from the dark chocolate. It's a little bit warming, and then maybe there's some firm fruit flesh afterwards. And as it finishes off, I pick up coffee and spice. It's not really thick on the palate, but it does stick around for a while. And one of the things that I love about Dalmore 12 is that every time I drink it, I am reminded of how much I actually like it, right? It's sort of the surprising thing where you forget something and then you remember it again and it's pleasant. It's not quite like the first time you had it, but it's somewhere in that vein. Now, staying with Dalmore, we're going to shift to the Dalmore 18, and this should reveal how additional maturation is going to transform the Highland character. Those extra 6 years should create a depth that is impossible to achieve through wood finishing or other techniques. Time is whiskey's most valuable tool. Isn't the idea of smelling a whiskey super duper pretentious? I mean, you stick your nose in there and you're not really consuming it, but it is what it is. So when on my pass through for this, the nose is cran grape, like cranberry grape juice, but it's not really cran grape, right? So if you've ever looked at the ingredients list on a cranberry grape juice, you'll find that cranberry and grape are both juices that are in there, but there's also like pineapple and lemon and white grape and a whole bunch of stuff. And that's what this comes across like a fruit juice that is multiple fruits sort of put together, and then behind it comes in this really light caramel characteristic. The palate on it is maybe in service to the idea of cran and grape and lemon and pineapple, and the fact that it gets some acidity to it. There is some oak, some herbal, maybe a coffee tonic, and mouthfeel is thin, but flavor is full. And it feels like a weird juxtaposition where you were to kind of look at those things. And then as it finishes out, the spice definitely sticks around for a while. Then there's some dark fruit, maybe some spent fruit skins from either making, juice or wine or whatever you happen to do. Putting these side by side kind of shows some of the darkness and the richness that might come out of additional aging of the same whiskey. It feels a little more sophisticated, but there's just something about that Dalmore 12 that really knocks it out of the park. Now, let's move on to the Glendronic Allardice, and this represents whiskey's remarkable ability to handle rich, sweet cask influences without losing some regional character. The expression pushes sherry maturation to its limits while maintaining a Highland DNA. From the looks of this bottle, I believe David Levine shared this with me, so thank you, David, for that. So I've used this nosing note before, and I'm going to use it again, and that's okay, right? And this is rummy in the way that Pirates of the Caribbean smells like rum and smoke. And there maybe is some salinity that comes into play, and then it makes you start wondering, like at Pirates of the Caribbean, do they pipe in salt into that smell? It'd be super cool. I know they do a lot of sensory push, but that's what this gives me through and through. The palate on this is tobacco spice, and then it goes dry like a wine for me. There is some smoke and salt still sticking around, and then as it finishes, it sticks around as like a warm, dry, makes you feel sort of like a fireplace, right? Where, the fireplace is providing warmth, but it's also sucking moisture from the room. And then it finishes into like a mineral watery type finish. Like if you've ever drank much mineral water, 10 minutes after drinking mineral water, you still know you drank mineral water, and not in a bad way. This final expression should represent Highland whiskey's innovative spirit. Glenmorangie Signet proves that traditional regions can embrace radical experimentation while maintaining regional identity. Every online note that I've read about this, and this is, I've tasted this a couple different times, says chocolate or Nutella, and I don't get that at all. I do get citrus and malt, and it could be just me, or it could be the series of tasting, or it could be any other thing. Now, once you get into the taste of it, once you get into the palate of it, maybe that's where it is, and maybe this is going to that testament of being subtle with the chocolate flavoring. There is definitely some dark chocolate or burnt chocolate that's here, and then some nutty and some spicy. And then as it finishes, to me, it finishes more like coffee than chocolate, pithy like a citrus, and dank. This is a really interesting set of characteristics for tasting notes, and I thoroughly enjoy it. It should demonstrate how Highland distilleries are pushing boundaries and respecting regional character with that chocolate malt influence. You still get the sense that this is a Highland whiskey, right? I got those from the citrus and malt on the nose and the citrus in the end, but that chocolate coffee flavor and the nuttiness kind of came into play in the middle of it. Tonight's 4 expressions showcase Highland's remarkable range while maintaining common threads. Each whiskey should show Highland's robustness and its ability to handle rich cask influences, higher proofs, and complex flair development without losing its balance. Comparing the maritime influence in Dalmore with the coastal northern Highland, and then the mountain characteristics from the Glenmorangie with the inland Highland. Both show Highland DNA, but express different aspects of the region's varied terroir. As far as innovation versus tradition, the progression from traditional Highland character of Dalmore 12 through the sherry mastery of the Glendronach and the radical innovation of the Signet shows how Highland distilleries will approach change. Each maintains an identity while exploring its different possibilities, and then age and Highland character. The Dalmore comparison gives us that comparison between Highland whiskies and how they develop with age. Unlike some regions where extended aging can overwhelm the base spirit of the character, Highland malts seem to strengthen and deepen while maintaining their essential identity. Today's Highland journey demonstrates why this region defies simple categorization, from Dalmore's elegant sherry influence to Glenmorangie's innovative chocolate malt. Highland distilleries create whiskies as diverse as Scotland's dramatic landscapes. The 4 expressions we've tasted show Highland whiskey's remarkable range: gentle, powerful, traditional, innovative, maritime, mountain influence, yet all share that same DNA. They are more robust than lowland whiskies and more balanced than Isla's intensity, more diverse than any other region. Highland's geography creates natural experiments in whiskey production. Coastal distilleries develop salinity, mountain distilleries emphasize mineral water, and valley distilleries focus on agricultural influences. This diversity within unity makes Highland Scotland's most fascinating whiskey region. The Glendale glasses helped us to appreciate the concentrated aromatics that define Highland character, though remember, these whiskeys will present differently in your glasses at home. The goal isn't perfect equipment, but consistent appreciation and understanding how tools influence our whiskey experience. On the next episode, we'll travel to Islay, where peat smoke and Atlantic storms create some of the world's most intense and distinctive whiskeys. From Highland's elegant diversity to Islay's focused intensity, the contrast will be dramatic. Until then, continue exploring Highland's diversity. Try coastal expressions from the West Highlands, mountain malts from the Cairngorms, or innovative finishes from creative distilleries. Highland whiskey rewards curiosity with endless discoveries. Thanks for tuning in to this episode from the Embellish Pod. If you enjoyed this, please leave me a review on whatever platform you're consuming this on. Leave a comment if at all possible. Hit me up on social media on TikTok or Instagram at Embellish Pod, and you can give me a follow so you can keep up with what's going on here. I can be found on my website at www.embellishpod.com with all of my links, accounts, and contact details. Thanks for stopping by.